Hi, this is Pastor Blair with Tactical Pulpit, and today we're doing a video on site with my friend Mike Tauber from Tauber Plumbing. And so we're going to be doing a shallow well, right?
That's right. Yep.
Okay, so and in talking about this, he actually called me and invited us out here to take part of this, and he brought up an aspect I wasn't even thinking about. So we're kind of going to look at this from giving ideas to maybe 3 different people groups. Your preppers that don't want to be reliant on the grid, homesteaders that maybe don't have that option. But the third one you gave me was
Missions group.
A missions group.
Yep.
Yeah.
I could see maybe somewhere down the line if somebody was out in a rural area and they had a high water table, this might be applicable for a situation like that.
All right. So how many of these have you done?
Well, not a lot. Maybe 8, 10, something like that.
Okay.
The last one I did was on my own property as a test well. We're just monitoring the groundwater there and what's happening around there. So at my own house, it's supposedly a similar water table to what we're expecting here. And starting out, this is a garden plot for this community garden in Hackensack, and accordingly, we're looking at water sources. The city water doesn't appear to be the best thing for growing plants, so we thought, well, what can we do to use the groundwater that's here? And when you look on the Minnesota Department of Health's well index site, they have different wells around the area plotted out on a map, and you can go and click on those and find out how deep it is to water. So across the street, they're 10 feet to water. Up the hill, it gets a lot deeper as you go up the hill, but generally speaking, we're expecting water in that 10 to 15 foot area. And I did have a dowsing friend, somebody who's good with the pendulum, and they came out here and walked right over that spot that we started digging at. So those two factors got me to this point where I'm willing to take a chance and see if we can find water here.
Okay. Can we go over your materials here?
Yep.
And see what we've got?
So your basic shovel, you're going to have that to get started, or I do anyway, because it tells you what you've got right underneath the sod. Step number 2 would be to use an auger, and this is my contraption. Of course, I start out with this handle threaded into this coupling, and so you start short, and then you just add another section as you go down. We're hoping to get down to like 10 or maybe 15 feet with that before we even start pounding. We may hit water before then too, so that's the auger bit.
I already asked you this question, but when I have done this in the past, I've never used the auger. I've just pounded from go, and so care to explain that option? Or
yeah, there's a lot of people that would just take a post pounder and stick that thing right in the ground and go to it and just pound it right down through the ground without augering a hole. And you can do that. I find that this is a little easier on my shoulders, and it also lets you know what's in the ground. As we're coming out, we pile the dirt on something that you can kind of make visible, and you get what they call the stratigraphy of the soil going down. Okay, the obvious pipe wrenches, you got to have a couple of those for disassembly of your auger. If you want to add extensions or take the handle off, you got to have that. So then as you get the hole open, you're going to find a rock down there eventually. And this is just my own homemade contraption. I don't know if you can see that. It's got kind of a crook on the end of it. And that's for, you can get down the hole and get that underneath a rock and lift it up out of there. If you're using an auger, you run into a rock that's, baseball size, it can just about make your life miserable. So, and then you could probably do the same thing with a stiffer piece of re-rod. If this one were longer and bent on the end, you wouldn't need 2 pieces. But this is just what I use for poking those rocks. If they're stuck in the side, I can jimmy them out of the side of the hole with that, so I can get them with the crook. All right, if you're lucky enough to get to a point where you want to pound, this is your standard drive point. So it's a stainless steel assembly, and you can see the cast iron point on it. They do make these all stainless steel that don't have that cone on it. and sometimes those will work, but this one is a little heavier duty. It will take the pounding and it can glance off of a rock a lot better. So once you get started down the ground, there it goes. Okay, so that's going to start. You're going to use a drive coupling. This is really important. A lot of people want to use a regular galvanized coupling. These are much heavier. Get up closer. These are really heavy duty. I don't know if you can see the thickness of that wall, but they're a lot different than your standard 1.25 inch galvanized coupling.
So, and that will not work, huh? That'll split?
It could work. I've tried it, and it has worked on occasion, but it also makes you sad 5 years down the road when, you know, this thing has a crack in it, and eventually it
starts sucking air.
It's corrosion and will suck air, and then you're sad again. So you're gonna pull it back up and start over. When you're driving, you gotta have a drive cap. You got this beautiful blue, isn't that nice? Beautiful blue guy. So that'll set on top of, you know, you aren't gonna generally start right there. You can, but normally there's going to be a piece of pipe on there and then the drive cap on top. And when I auger a hole, this is all down in the hole to start with, so I can start at, you know, hopefully less than chin level. So normally I try to get 10 feet of pipe in the ground at least to start with the point on there. If I can auger down, you know, this is a 3-foot point, so if I can auger down to 13 feet, then we start with this guy in the ground and this guy.
Oh shit.
So I think it's an 11-footer, but pipe comes in 21-foot sections now. So I've got 2 of these, one of those big guys. If we need all of it, we're pretty close to the limit for what a shallow well pump will do. So
what is the limit?
25 feet. 25 feet to the head of the pump. That's the general rule of thumb. Now some places, you know, you can stretch it, or there's a little bit of leeway, and I'm not sure exactly what's all involved there, but I do know that some people they'll have a little bit of an upwelling underground, or the flow will be a little better, and they can get by with a little more distance to water. So we're looking for static water level here with a hand pump. You'd be concerned with a lot of other things if you had to put an electric pump on there. Yeah. We got such beautifully colored things today. So
yeah.
It's
patriotic.
It is, isn't it? Yeah, there we go. So this is all stuff that I just got downtown. This is nothing special you have to go to, you know, Timbuktu to find. You can find it everywhere. And I would think that everywhere you go in the world, this kind of stuff should be not too far away. It might be overkill in some parts of the world, but
what do you have invested in this financially?
I can tell you. Downtown Hackensack Lumber, we've got about $200 into it. So, if you're out in the missions field and you want to talk somebody into doing a good thing, $200 for some well materials would be cool, right? Just cool. But if you're out in the woods, as you can tell, if you don't have a grid to work with, there's nothing here that needs power. So that's a big benefit. And if you live on the grid and you want to be able to have an option when the power goes out, this will work too. And like Blair was telling us at his house, he's got a hand pump on top of his normal well.
Maybe I'll show that in this video too.
And that's a great idea. I've seen people do that. I haven't done it myself. I thought about it, but it's kind of a big deal, I think, to do that. So
I've got a question for you. I don't see a check valve here.
I do have one.
Not out, but is that a necessity on this?
It's not, but it's a nice thing. I don't know if you can see, but in here there's a leather flapper, which is also an old school check valve. So when you put water in here and you're pumping it up, the water comes up, the flapper opens, water comes up, and as you let the pressure off, then the flapper closes and keeps the water up in the well. Now that works okay. You know, if you're there daily, it might be enough to hold the water up in the well, but at my house, that flapper doesn't get watered enough, and then it'll dry up, and pretty soon you don't have water. So I put a check valve on these assemblies above ground, of course, with a couple of drain nuts on it. They make a nice double tap check valve you can use for that, something like that. And that's the plan, is to use that here. I guess I better finish the material list here for what you're using. This is that's my post pounder. Some people have the nice tube with the handles welded on it and a chunk of lead in the bottom. I'm not that into it, so I hope not to be a well driller. I'm just, you know, getting
Yeah.
by here. And then this is a block line, and I just have a, you know, a nut on the bottom for weight, and I drop that down the well. A lot of times when you're pounding, you can hear when you get to water, it'll make a different sound in the pipe as you're pounding. You hear a boom, boom, you know, it'll start to resonate. So I use that to figure out how far down we are. And then when you get close to the end, you want to know how many feet you've got in the ground and how deep in the water table you are.
So you drop that string and the nut clear down.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
okay.
So, and you can, it's a little dangerous to use anything that's got girth to it. I mean, you want something that's fairly round, that doesn't have too many edges to catch, because down in the bottom there's fins and things and welds that come together, and if you get that stuck in there, well, it's going to stay there. And you don't want to leave a whole lot of material in the bottom of your well pipe. So,
Can I do a close-up of the Sandpoint itself and the stainless steel and the screen? I don't know if that's zoomed in there, but you can see the stainless holes, and then is that a stainless screen
there's
inside
a fine
there?
stainless screen in there. Yep.
Sure. Okay.
They make different gauzes, they call it. So you can get coarser screens if you want, but if you're in the sand, you probably want as fine a screen as you can get, pretty much. But the finer the screen, the more likely it is to clog up over time. So, two things you forgot to put on the material list. One is a check valve. I like these double tap check valves. They got, you know, 2 drain ports in there. So when you know, if you install this, you want to winterize later on down the road, you just pull these 2 plugs out and you're done. So, and then you got to have a little what I call pipe dope. It's thread sealant, and you use this liberally, because this is what keeps the sand out of your joints as you're putting it down in the ground. So, and then when we're doing this, you want to make sure all your joints are nice and tight, and then you got to tighten them as you go too. So keep that in mind.
I'm with you.
When we get to the level where I can throw my belly over the tee, then we're gonna make ground.
Game on then.
There.
Orange, right? Isn't it orange? Collins or something.
Remember when the
Good.
girlfriend? So my buddies downtown at the hardware store, they cut the pipe and threaded it for me. They come in 21-foot pieces, so we got all these little ones. And as you assemble the pipe here on the ground, you want to keep it out of dirt. No foreign material. No foreign material. Pretty important to keep this all tight as you're pounding. So I usually give it like 20 whacks with the maul, and then come back with the wrenches and tighten everything again. If you keep the threads tight, it doesn't damage them. Although you can, I mean, you can damage it even if you're trying hard not to. But if you don't have it sealed up and tight, you're not going to draw any water up out of here. It's like sucking a straw, you know. Again, these are drive couplings. They're not your standard couplings. Not to say that you couldn't do it with something in a bind, but now the nice part about, you know, what we're doing with the auger is that this joint isn't going to see a whole lot of stress now. We're already going to have most of this section of pipe in the ground before we start. So the hammering, you know, we're not starting with that tip on the ground. We're going to start with this all down the hole already. So the pounding effect is a lot less if you auger the hole first. Okay, so this is the other end of the pipe. I'm going to use a drive cap that I've about half used up. I kind of like to do this if you got the material and the time. I use another drive coupling, a short piece of pipe, and a cap. Because if you damage this, no big deal. If you damage this little piece of pipe, no big deal. If you damage the end of that thread on that 10-footer, that's a little bit more of a big deal. So, okay, let's try it.
That's pretty wet, dripping out of there, huh? Yeah.
That's what we like to see.
And how deep is that? That's about...
Must be close to 8, huh? That's one good one. There's a couple of small rocks in there now. So if we're at 8, and our dowser friend, she says it was like between, I thought it was between 10 and 15. Bill was thinking it was 12 to 15. We're getting close. So I guess I'm game for putting the pipe in the hole at this point.
We're both rolling.
You gonna get the line? Hurt your hand? No. Hurt your ears? Don't drop it down the hole. Let's put the string down there first.
The school's a part-time thing.
There's water. Oh, not the one.
Oh, yeah. That's the top now that you marked?
Yeah, you want to hold there?
The water? Oh, there must be water down there.
Okay. Take a run.
12.9.
12.9? Okay. So we're right at it. It'll form as you hit it. The chunks come off just like on T-posts, you know?
Yeah.
That's why it's advisable to have one of those regular post drivers. Because it's all contained inside that tube as you're whacking on it. Bacteria and nitrate test for free if you register it. If you register it, they'll do that for free. Then you can find out if it's drinkable to some extent. But now that's not accounting for volatile organic compounds and all that stuff. I'm guessing it'll be the same here now. Tape measure thing again? If it's changed, that means we got something going on.
Oh, same.
12.9?
12.9.
Okay, I'm going to drop it all the way down this time. Forgetting to tighten it. I'm forgetting to tighten it. Picture like, you know, the stuff we showed you guys on the tour. It's it'd be best to meet you like in Chamberlain, take down for a couple hours.
Yeah.
He wants to meet with a small group. So that was my next move, is to start. twist up through this hole.
Just like that.
I mean, if your hand tight's good. Whatever your hand says. Any suction?
Starting there.
Suction, that's kind of weird.
I told you I would show you my personal setup at home. So here's my right inside the house now, and it's 18 feet deep. Concrete was just poured around it, and then here's the check valve here. Comes up to what used to be an elbow, and then this would go over to the pump. You can't see the pump back here because it's so dark. What I did is I put a T here, took off the elbow, put a T, put a riser, put a valve there, and then a pitcher pump there. So what I would do in the event of a power loss is I would take this off, and then I would, this is just a plug, I would plug that, I would open this valve and just prime this pump, and it would be ready to go.